And remember, we have to let this cook for a minute or two. We like to remember things. Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Vegan Boomer Babe, where it is never too late to go vegan. Today's recipe is a favorite of mine. It is a vegan gravy. It's kind of a combination between a beef gravy and a chicken gravy with mushrooms and all kinds of good stuff. So who doesn't love gravy? You can put it on mashed potatoes, noodles. Meatloaf is one of my favorite things to put this on, vegan meatloaf of course. So yeah, you can use gravy in a lot of different applications. So today I'm going to start with our pan. I've been heating my pan, and I'm going to put about a tablespoon of olive oil into my pan. I'm just going to swish that around in here. And I have 8 ounces of sliced portobello mushrooms. So I'm going to put these into the pan and saute these for just a bit. And get this going here. I'm going to saute these for about 5 minutes, but first I'm going to let them kind of do their thing. I like mushrooms that are well done. I don't like them too chewy. So I'm going to add some onions and garlic to this, but I really want these mushrooms to kind of get a head start. So I'm going to let these brown up just a little bit, and then I'm going to add the onions. Okay, these are starting to brown nicely. And now I'm going to add 1 onion diced up. So put that in with the mushrooms. Stir it around. It's starting to smell good, but it's going to smell even better because now I'm going to add garlic. So I have 4 large cloves of garlic actually, and I'm going to chop them. I'm not going to mince them. If I were going to mince them, I would use my garlic press. But I'm going to use my food chopper instead. So just chop these up so that they're perfect. And now I'm going to add my chopped garlic into the onions and mushrooms. And I'm going to add just a little bit of salt and pepper. Just to season, just a little bit of salt. And I'm going to just let this cook until that onion starts to get soft, the mushrooms are well done, and that garlic is toasted. So let me just let this sit for another couple of minutes. But you know, I think I'm going to add some Marsala wine. I have some dry wine, and I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons maybe, just because it goes nicely with the mushrooms. It gives it a nice little flavor. So, it smells so good. I'm going to let these just simmer for a bit, and then I'm going to remove these and continue on with the gravy, and then add these again at the end. So let's let these simmer for just a little bit more. Okay, this is looking really good. I'm going to remove the mushrooms and onions and garlic and the Marsala to a bowl to reserve it, and I'll add it in a little bit later. So I have my pan back on the stove, and I'm going to add to this 4 tablespoons of Earth Balance or any kind of vegan butter that you'd like. I like Earth Balance, but Mayoko's whatever. Like, oops, splashing the butter. Okay. That is cooking up nicely. And of course, when you're making any gravy, you have to make a roux. So I'm going to add to this a 1/4 cup of flour. I'm going to mix this around. And I want to cook this, you need to get that raw flour flavor out of the flour. So I'm going to cook this for about a minute or so. And just, okay, so I'm making this roux. And it is just getting paste-like. And remember, we have to let this cook for a minute or 2. We like to remember things. Okay. I have 2 cups of veggie broth. You could use mushroom broth if you'd like. That would be good. Or I know chicken broth, but I have veggie. So this is good. Now I'm going to carefully whisk in. I'm going to start with a little bit. I don't want this to turn lumpy, but I'm making a mess here. What a surprise. I'm making a mess. Yes, I'm going to whisk, 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 whisk. Because we want to incorporate that roux into the veggie broth. Okay. We may be having some technical difficulties today. I'm not quite sure. We'll find out. So, let's see, we have the butter, flour, and the veggie broth. And now this is where I said earlier that it's kind of a chicken, kind of a beef. I'm adding poultry seasoning, and I'm adding a Better Than Bouillon No Beef base. So I'm adding 1.5 teaspoons of the poultry seasoning. Poultry seasoning is key in this recipe. If you don't have poultry seasoning, go to the store and buy poultry seasoning. You need poultry seasoning for this. It is, or I think poultry seasoning is a combination of a lot of different veggie, or a lot of different spices. You could Google what goes in and if you have the individual ones, but to me, I just love how the poultry seasoning tastes in this gravy. So 1.5 teaspoons, and then my no beef broth, which sounds kind of contradictory here, but I'm going to add about 1 teaspoon of that as well. And then I'm going to whisk this all together. And this gravy is really the best vegan gravy ever, I guarantee. And it is starting to thicken really nicely now. It has a really dark brown color to it, and it smells just wonderful. And again, you can use this on so many things. This is just a real basic gravy, but far from basic. I think the little, little bit of Marsala kind of takes it up a notch. Now that we are thickening up, and it looks delicious. I have spatters of gravy everywhere. And now I'm going to add back in to the gravy the onions, the mushrooms. You can see that broth from the mushrooms and onions that have been sitting there. And I'm going to just stir this around. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. So it's a hearty gravy. This over mashed potatoes is fabulous. You could, if this is too thick for your liking, you could add more broth and thin it out a little bit. I kind of like a thick hearty gravy. You could really, I would maybe thin it out just a little. Especially if you go to reheat it. It's going to thicken up as it cools. So that is it. I'm going to give it a little taste and see if it needs any salt or pepper. I'm going to guess that it does not, because there's salt in the bouillon and there's salt in the vegetable broth. So this is so good. You will love, 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 love this recipe. So I hope you will give it a try. It is easy to make, less than 10-15 minutes, and absolutely delicious. So thanks for joining me in my kitchen today. Remember, it's never too late to go vegan, and I will see you in my kitchen again real soon. Thanks for joining me today.